Well, good morning, Chairman Reid, and welcome to the GTR Africa 2020. And what a privilege it is to talk to you about US Exim's role and the particular focus that you have on Africa. 2020 has been a turbulent time for everybody, but that hasn't stopped US Exim from concluding one of the biggest projects in Africa, the 4.7 billion LNG project in Mozambique. And I know that is something that we will be talking about shortly. But I do remember, though, if I may go back to when we first met, I was asked to give you an independent viewpoint on US Exim. And I said that one of the key strengths of US Exim is that what you see is what you get. You have a policy of open communication. It's very clear as to what you can and you can't do. There's no last minute hidden surprises. From a banker's point of view, you are the ECA with the lowest operational risks, and if you're on cover for a particular market, there is, I believe, no country ceilings. And on top of all of that, you have full access to the OECD SIR rate in terms of your direct lending program. So, for my banking days, that meant we had unlimited appetite for US Exim paper. But today we're here to talk about Africa. And it's your unique African perspective that I'm really interested in. In that, I believe you're the only ECA that has identified as part of your own goals, Africa as a key region. And I'd be really interested if you could give us some insight as to both your wider goals, but also why specifically US Exim has focused on Africa.
Thank you, Gabby, and it's so nice to be with you again and with all of the viewers of the GTR Africa 2020 conference. I've been president and chairman of the Export-Import Bank for 17 months now, and was finally confirmed by the United States Senate back in May of 2019 with President Trump's support and weigh-in, and reopened our bank fully at that time. And for the viewers, I flew over to Berlin where I met Gabby, who is a luminary in the world of export credit agency financing topics. And we sat down and had a very in-depth conversation because as I came into the United States Exim to reopen it, I really wanted to be mindful about some key things. And Gabby really charged me with doing one big thing, which we succeeded doing. That was to give certainty to the world, including to Africa, that Exim would be around for a long time. After reopening, we had to go through a reauthorization process. And typically, our United States Export Credit Agency has been reauthorized by our US Congress for 3 to 5 years at a time. And President Trump knows that it is important to tell the world to buy made in the USA goods and services. And so he weighed in as a big negotiator and told the Congress, I want a 10-year reauthorization. And the Congress came back on December 20th with a 7-year reauthorization of Exim, the longest in our 86-year history. And so, so we're back and we're doing deals, and we want to be focused on sub-Saharan Africa. And so Gabby, we're doing that. And since we met, we've supported about $8 billion in exports to Africa, and we're continuing to get in applications and working through those processes. We want to really send a loud message. The president sent me as the head of his presidential delegation to the swearing in of Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, last year. It was an honor to be on stage with heads of state and government. And then sit down with so many businesses from throughout the African continent to encourage them to buy made in the USA. So just recently, I was in Florida, Port Manatee, Florida, where I actually got to touch part of that big deal that you mentioned, Gabby, the largest deal in Exim's history, $4.7 billion of exports to Mozambique. And I saw this wonderful heat exchange, looks almost like a missile, these heat exchange pieces of equipment made by Air Products. And right now underway are these things that are going to be put on a boat at Port Manatee, Florida, and end up in Mozambique to help Mozambique really develop their natural gas LNG facility and transform that country. And in the meantime, it's supporting nearly 17,000 US jobs in our country. But it's so amazing to see that equipment being produced as part of Made in America Week here.
This is the type of transaction that, from a US Exim perspective, that you're very keen to be supporting, either huge multi-billion-dollar transactions, or is it that you're looking right across the whole spectrum for Africa?
Right across the whole spectrum. On my way back from the swearing in of President Ramaphosa, we stopped in the wonderful African island nation of Cape Verde. And we know even in Boston, Massachusetts, we have a huge diaspora community of people from that country. And so we're working with small businesses every single day. We have the capability of supporting $135 billion of financing at any one time on our book. And because we were closed for 4 years, right now we're at about 40 billion. So I want to see us support 85 billion more in exports. And our United States Congress has given us a goal of 30% of that to be focused on small business. And this includes our great American women and minority-owned, veteran-owned, persons with disability-owned, small businesses, as well as startups. So we have launched a All America initiative, reaching out to every state and all of our territories. I was just with the head of economic development from Puerto Rico, because they have a very strong pharmaceutical industry there. We want to think about what we can be doing to help exports of every size, every dollar amount. And we know that those small deals take a lot of hand-holding. Imagine being a first-time exporter. I'm really focused now on how we get them to think about the global marketplace, including to Africa. So no deal is too big and no deal is too small. The only thing that we care about is reasonable assurance of repayment, supporting US jobs, and protecting the American taxpayer. But we want to help sub-Saharan Africa in every way that we can, and it's with deals of all sizes.
But if I may drill down a bit more onto that, I think it's interesting that, from my perspective, I do not see US Exim having a shortage of appetite for sub-Saharan Africa. But the question is how do you encourage US companies to be active in the continent? What are you actually doing that can help drive that SME, that helps drive the interest of US companies to be looking more in sub-Saharan Africa?
Well, it's conferences like this. It is actually going out and providing boots on the ground through visits. And unfortunately, COVID really made us become a fully telecommuting agency back in mid-March. But I'm out now again. My colleagues are out again, traveling. I want to say we're open in 48 of the 54 countries in Africa. So we do have places where we are closed. But we're closely following that. We've brought in extra tools and resources and flexibilities with COVID. And I can't wait to come back to Africa again. And our team is engaging virtually all the time, and really want to hear from the viewers of this program as well as to what we can be doing in each of these countries. I'm engaged with a lot of the US ambassadors in these countries. And if you closely follow our news releases on Exim's website, www.exim.gov, you'll see I'm engaging every single day with stakeholders in Africa and around the world, and taking those calls and working harder than ever, even though it's most usually from my kitchen table. Okay.
If I may move on, because I think the LNG transaction was a huge impactful transaction that really put US Exim on the map. But also, which I think is quite unusual about US Exim, is your program on China and transformational exports. And actually, I found that quite an interesting law, because when I started to delve into that, there were two things that I found interesting. One is that it's a goal of yours to have at least 20% of your total financing authority.
At least.
At least, which is 27 billion out of 135 billion pursuant to that program. So I'd be interested to get some insight from you about how you see that program manifesting itself, and what does it mean? Does it mean that you are able to go longer, cheaper? You know, are you breaking the OECD rules when you're instigating usage of cover under that program? And the second question associated with that is that I noticed that that law does not only cover China, but can be extended to cover other covered countries. So my second question on this is, does this mean that US EXIM could invoke the program on China and transformational exports and use it to compete against, let's say, OECD European ECAs?
So Congress, for the viewers, when we were extended in this law back on December 20th, 2019 to the year 2026, I've had to balance a lot of views in Congress and work on a lot of issues. And so while we were away for 4 years, not doing the big deals, we saw the world of export credit agencies expand. We're now at 115 export credit agencies globally. And we know through our annual report on global competition that China is doing just about 90% of what the G7 countries combined are doing. And so Congress said to EXIM, we're going to reauthorize you, but we want you to stand up a new program. And it's called China and Transformational Exports. And Congress on December 20th told us to take a look at the world and basically bring deals to the United States. And so the law says, and you can see it on our website under our charter, I've done a specific placeholder to the statutory language, that we need to do things that are fully competitive with China, that neutralize China, that advance America's comparative leadership in the world, and also focus on 10 key transformational export industries. And those include artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and I'm from the world of agriculture, so I read that not only as medical biotechnology, but also food and agriculture biotechnology. Biomedical sciences, which is really important as we talk about COVID vaccines. Wireless communication / 5G, quantum computing, renewable energy, energy efficiency and storage, semiconductors and machinery, emerging financial technology, water treatment and sanitation, and high performance computing and related services associated with these exports. So Congress said, go out there. We want you to focus at least $27 billion or 20% of your portfolio on finding these deals, and you can agree to them on rates and terms and other conditions that are fully competitive with China. So I had to stand up this program. We're in the process of doing that. We welcome applications. We are a demand-driven agency. So when the application comes in, we judge every application based on the merits. And we will still continue to protect the taxpayer and always have a reasonable assurance of repayment. But this does give us some flexibility. You'll be seeing more news on this program in the weeks and months to come. But as soon as an application comes in, and I'm not going to talk about what's in our pipeline right now, because that's confidential until it happens to be a board vote, but give us some test case scenarios, companies around the world. We don't want to be reading about these deals in the newspaper. We want to be considered for them as countries look at various countries and products. And so I hope all the countries in Africa are beginning to learn about our great opportunity to match China and ensure that you focus on us. I've had a lot of enthusiasm from countries, I would say, and the conversation is underway, but the largest deal in EXIM's history is an example of that. We were shut. We are told that Mozambique was looking and slated to put China and Russia into this deal. And then when we were reopened, they came to us. And so I got to see the products that will be headed to Mozambique.
But I'm going to push you once more on this, okay? I'm going to push you to say that what you've said to me, my interpretation of that is that, that this is a reflection by US Exim that China does not play by the OECD consensus rulings. And if there is a example where US companies in the sectors that you were describing needed to match or better what the Chinese were offering, even if those terms were beyond the consensus, you would do it.
We're going to read the law as it is, and we'll see when these applications come in how we take those on. I can't wait.
Okay, so watch this space then, I think, really, for everybody else.
Watch this space and bring deals to us. Yes.
Okay.
And I also want to say, you mentioned other defined countries, so the Treasury Secretary and others will weigh in on that, but right now it's defined as China for sure, and other countries. The world will evolve in the years to come, and things will change, and we really want to play in a transparent world. We don't want to race to the bottom. I love my fellow colleagues that are part of the OECD arrangement. And but we know that there are more countries and their export credit agencies that are not part of that arrangement. And so I also know that I have very good conversations with our partners and allies around the world, especially when it comes to topics like 5G and wireless communication.
Okay. Chairman Reid, you said about we're in the changing world, and 2020, we're in the middle of this pandemic. Which in my opinion makes the role and the importance of the ECAs now front and center. And it's events like this that I think the ECAs were set up in the first instance. The question to you is, what are your thoughts about how the ECAs are reacting to COVID-19? And do you think they should be doing more or should be doing less? And on that, I'd be interested in your differences of opinion regarding what you may be doing for your suppliers, your US exporters in terms of liquidity, versus what you could be doing for the buyers who I think need support to buy more.
So we immediately took action in mid-March to provide tools to help with this crisis. And the US Exim just hosted our annual G12 meeting of export credit agency heads. And from that, I don't know if any of you watched, but I hosted virtually the G12. And then later on that week, Exim hosted its annual conference virtually. It was an all-time high attendance of 1,700 registrants virtually. But we had a panel at the closeout of our annual conference. And that content is still available for those of you who are part of it, where I had a panel of my fellow ECA heads. And we definitely talked about COVID. We issued a joint statement at the end of our G12 that you can read on our website that talks about our commitment to helping companies around the world and supporting jobs around the world at this time. Every country is different. And we're listening loud and clear to what our exporters need. So we took definite action that you can read about on our website, and we continue to listen loud and clear. We're just now starting to see the need for the resources that Exim provides, including our supply chain financing and others. And we provide export credit insurance policies. We just had a meeting of our risk management committee, and our default rate increased slightly to just about 0.5%, which is still excellent. We have a cap on our default rate of 2% by law, where pencils are down when we hit that. So we're closely following all this, and we're listening. And Gabby, if and all of you watching, if there are tools that we could be offering that we're not from the buyer's side, let us know. So, but I feel that every ECA is experiencing things differently, but as of September 9th and 10th and 11th, that week when we met collectively, we all felt that we were managing this the best that we could, and you will see that statement that we put out from the G12.
Okay, well, I'll take you up on that offer of letting you know I'm personally dealing with one ECA who is willing to cover the 15% down payment for 18 years on top of the 85% that's already been covered by, interestingly, a separate ECA. Now, it is very narrow in that it is for renewable energy and it is for a developing market, oddly enough, in Africa as well. And actually, I found that quite interesting in that, here's an ECA who, in my opinion, has unilaterally come up with this as a proposition.
Which country? Which country?
It's in, I don't want to be too specific because I've given you so much information, but we're talking about West Africa. And this ECA has said, this is a facility that we are providing to the buyer to help them through this COVID period, where we know that this buyer will struggle to either come up with a 15% down payment themselves or to raise the 15% down payment in terms of a separate financing. So they have unilaterally come forward. Now, I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to do in this period where, clearly funding and liquidity for buyers in Africa is a scarce resource and a costly resource. My concern really about this is that it's unilateral. There doesn't seem to be a consensus within the OECD to look at this from a buyer's perspective. I think each of the ECAs have been very good in terms of supplying. So my question to you on that is, if I may follow on this point, is there consensus being, or is there a discussion within the OECD about what should be done at the buyer level?
So EXIM, it's our my counterparts at our US Treasury that is having the OECD formal discussions, but this did not come up during our G12. I know that my colleagues from our international team are listening in. And so I welcome those informal conversations as appropriate with OECD member countries as we look at that. But I want to be doing all we can within our U.S. business export focused efforts. So TBD, how about that?
Okay. And I know time is scarce, and one of the topics I'd be keen to cover before we finish is to get a deeper understanding of US Exim's policy on sustainable development goals. How important are these goals in the decision processes of US Exim? And how do they fit with US Exim's new vision of keeping America strong, empowering US businesses and workers to compete globally? Because there must be some friction between the two. And and forgive the pun, which is the trump card to get this? Is it about keeping America strong, or is it about making sure that everything you do is on in line with the Sustainable Development Goals?
So I know for many years I've been engaged with the UN when I was in the world of food and agriculture, and the SDGs were developed. Now my role at EXIM is to follow our US law, follow the administration's policies, and we're about supporting US jobs. And the law for EXIM says you need to judge every transaction based on the merits of that transaction. So when we get an application in, we have very great companies of all kinds, but when an application comes in, if it merits a reasonable assurance of repayment, we're gonna look at it, put it through a process, national security process, and we'll consider it. But renewable energy is a big focus of ours right now, and so I've done a lot of outreach in that sector. That's one of the 10 transformational sectors outlined as part of our new China program. And so I would say that when it comes to SDGs, we are leaning in on renewables. And just actually had a very good conversation in my office today with U.S. Ambassador to Denmark, Carlos Sands, on that topic, and having that every which way that we can. We have a very strong environmental team here at EXIM that also reviews our deals. It goes through an analysis and process before we bring it to a board vote. And then I know with the SDGs, also it focuses on ag, and so you'll see that we want healthy food and great food exports, nutritious food exports going everywhere we can. So I recently signed a memorandum of understanding with our USDA colleagues and Undersecretary for Trade there, Ted McKinney. And so you'll see, you know, not voted on a deal directly yet, large deal in Africa, lots of small deals, but we did do one with Iraq for export of wheat and rice. But more to come on that. And then of course, another one of our transformational exports is focused on water sanitation and treatment. And so that I think plugs in as well to the focus of SDGs.
Okay. Well, Chairman Reid, look, on behalf of GTR and all of the sponsors on this conference, it's been a real privilege to have you here to discuss these issues. And you know, if you want to make any closing remarks, please feel free to do so.
Well, really, Gabby, it's so nice to be with you again. And I hope the world is seeing, and I hope you as a trusted expert in the world of export credit financing is seeing that US EXIM is back. And we really want to be doing great things. Also enjoy doing co-financing deals with partners and allies around the world. And I can't wait till we can be together again. But we stand committed to outstanding customer service and focus and delivery. Right now, as I mentioned, our book is about 40 billion. So I want to see 85 billion more dollars in financing to help with U.S. exports happen in a thoughtful way. Of course, we're not going to crowd out the private sector, but we want to be doing all we can. And especially at this time of COVID, I know that not only US EXIM, but EXIM's friends around the world are needed at this time in supporting key industries and key exports. And let's hope that we all come together and have a vaccine soon so that our economies can be thriving at high levels once again. So I hope everyone is well and safe, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Reid. Much appreciated. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.